What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down how to build your meal plan. After we go through all the questions you need to ask yourself and things you need to understand about yourself, I'm going to go into the two options that you have when it comes to planning what you're going to eat and how you're going to eat to be able to get your desired result, which is ultimately going to be your dream physique. Now, everything that I have in this video is based on my own journey as well as all of my clients. So it's pretty much all of our journeys and things that we've gone through. So if it's something I haven't gone through, it's something that I've coached someone through. So this will be really helpful for you if you're at any point in your journey here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just get into figuring out what you need to understand about yourself so that you can get into the meal planning part. I think a lot of people jump to the meal planning part without understanding their schedule, their position, their lifestyle, all these kinds of things that they don't really understand. And so their meal plan inevitably fails because it doesn't line up with their lifestyle, with who they are, with themselves, and it's really hard for them to adhere to. The hard part of sticking to your nutrition and being on this transformative journey of ultimately building your dream physique isn't that it's supposed to be friction every day and it's supposed to be difficult because it doesn't work with your schedule. It's supposed to be hard because it requires you to be consistent for a longer period of time than most people are willing to be. That's really all it is. And you're going to be, battling a lot of mindset issues and stuff as you try to implement this nutrition, which is ultimately what the hard part is. It shouldn't be hard because you're planning 6 meals in the day and you've got to work and then you got to take your kids to soccer practice. Like, obviously that's something that can be planned around, and you don't want to have too much friction going on or friction that you can control. You want to minimize it as much as possible because the real friction comes when you've had a long day and you want to go out to eat or you want to go off plan. That is when you need to save your energy to battle those things, like battle those cravings, battle those days where you don't want to go to the gym, or battle those days when you are low energy, not spending every day fighting just because you don't know how to plan your meals or don't know how to plan your training. But this is specifically about meals. Now, the first thing I want you to understand is your current position. If you are someone who is obese, like you're really overweight and you have like 40 plus, 50 plus percent body fat, you right now, the main goal for you is getting that fat off of your body as fast as humanly possible to get you in a range where you are athletically able to perform movements in the gym with enough efficiency to get desired muscle growth, right? So if you are at that point where you're extremely overweight, we can't even focus really on building that dream physique. I guess you can train, but it's not going to be as efficient as it would be if you had like a little less body fat, right? I'm not saying that you already have to be ripped, but I'm just saying, like, if you are at a current position where you're overweight, the main goal for you is going to be getting that fat off of your body. Whereas if you're someone right now who's skinny fat, maybe you're trying to lose the last 20 pounds, 15 pounds. Maybe you are, simply just trying to put on muscle. Now you have a little bit more of a luxury because you can play around with your nutrients and you can figure out, okay, what direction do I want to take this in? And you can focus more on building muscle and then slowly chipping away at the fat. Whereas if you're overweight, we got to get that fat off as soon as possible, not only for aesthetic purposes, but also for the longevity of your life and health reasons. So that is the main focus that I want you to look at this video through the lens of. So, whichever one you are now, begin to see things through that lens. And just know that whatever position you're in, the approach will be different. So something that will apply to someone that's skinny fat isn't going to apply to someone that is 300 pounds overweight. So next up, we have work and schedule. Now, understanding what you have to do in the day and when you have free time, whether it be to eat your meals or go to the gym, will help you figure out, am I going to have 3 meals in a day or am I going to have 5 meals in a day? So if you have not as busy of a schedule or you have enough time where you can eat in your schedule, then you can opt to have those 5 meals to help keep you fuller, right? You have 5 meals instead of 3 big ones. Maybe it makes you feel more satiated. Again, it's completely up to you, and that was just an example, but this will help tell you, okay, I'm supposed to eat this caloric number and I'm supposed to hit this macronutrients under those calories. Now I need to divide that by either 3 or 5 to make sure that every meal puts me one step closer towards that. And so when you do that, it helps kind of like break it down into small little segments so you're not overwhelmed every single day about hitting that caloric number, right? This kind of gives you like a map to achieve the day in a sense, right? And so when you understand your work and your schedule and, something that can typically remain the same, you can then have almost like a set standard or base to adhere to every single week. Now, another thing that is important with your work and your schedule is your activity levels, right? If you're working in 9 to 5 and you're sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day, that's something that you're going to have to take into account when you're building your nutrition. You're not going to be eating the same amount as someone who's maybe a bartender and they're on their feet all day, or they're a server and they're carrying trays, or they're stocking a warehouse, or they're working construction or whatever. And then the next one is just time constraints, right? So again, when you know how much time you have to spare, you can properly allocate that time. But if you never pay attention to that, you don't look at your actual work schedule, it's going to be really hard for you to plan your meals and such around those things. So once you understand where you're currently at in terms of body composition, once you understand your work schedule, you can then get into preference. Now this is where we can see, okay, what foods do we like? What foods do we hate? What foods maybe affect our digestion a little bit weird? I have one client that absolutely cannot eat rice. Every other client, rice is their bread and butter, okay? Figure out what makes you feel good and take note of what doesn't. Now, this is very specific per person. Everyone's digestion is different. But one thing I'm going to tell you with this, and I'm going to leave it at this: you shouldn't hate your meal plan. You can figure out a way to fit all of your favorite meals into your nutrition. I love a burger and fries, and I could have it every day if I wanted to go out of my way to cook it. Your meal plan should always be aligned with what you like, with the foods that you love, and things that you enjoy eating. And when your taste buds change over a few months or a few weeks and you start wanting something new, change the meals in the meal plan. Always be following your preference. And lastly, we have timeline. Now, this kind of goes with current position, but if you, for some reason, are in a rush, now I'm only saying this because I know that some people just want a fast result, but I will never encourage someone to get a fast result because 9 times out of 10, it's unsustainable. If you have a short timeline, you're going to need to be in a steeper calorie deficit and you're going to need to do more work and you're probably going to need to get more steps in. And you're probably going to need to do more cardio. Am I encouraging you to do this? No. Will those things speed up your timeline? Absolutely it will. Is it sustainable? For most people, no. But on the other side of that, what I do encourage you to do is have a long timeline. Allow yourself to take it slow. Allow yourself to make it sustainable. Allow yourself to slowly chip away at the fat and build muscle at the same time instead of making it so aggressive. Not many people can adhere to an aggressive deficit or get aggressive results. But at the end of the day, you're doing this for yourself. You get to decide the timeline. And I'm just here to tell you the reality of both sides. So now we've established where we're currently at. We've been able to identify that, whatever point it is. We're able to see our work schedule and know when we should eat certain things. We know what our activity levels are, and we know what our time constraints are. Next, we know that our meal plan should always align with our preference. And lastly, we've determined our timeline, whether long or short. Now we can head into the 2 different strategies you can take with nutrition, again, dependent on where you're at in your journey and who you are as a person, that you can apply with these things in mind. So now we're going to get into the actual nitty-gritty. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to want to look at as the caloric number. Now, the caloric number is going to be dependent heavily on your current position and your work schedule, particularly your activity levels. Okay, so your current position determines what your maintenance will be. What you do every single day in terms of how much you move, how much you're training, will play into that as well. Now, there's a calculator online called a TDEE calculator. Just click on the first one that pops up. It's a blue page, or it's like a blue logo, I mean. Enter in your metrics. It'll ask you your activity levels, your height, your age. Take the number with a grain of salt. Take the number with a grain of salt because there's so much nuance with this, and the only way to figure out what your true maintenance is and what is working is by following the plan and analyzing the data. It's what I have to do for my clients. We figure out what a guesstimate of their maintenance would be. And obviously, majority of them are losing weight. Now, some of them are special case where it's different, but we go down from that maintenance and then we see what happens on the scale. Did it go down? Did it go up? Did it not change? Okay, what factors are variables that we could control? Cut those out. Okay, now let's see. Did it change? Did it not change? Okay, it went down. Okay, that means that is your maintenance and we've gone into a deficit. And the more data that you have to help solidify this number in terms of the maintenance is going to make it more accurate or credible. So sometimes it takes obviously more than 3 to 4 weeks, right? And I encourage you to do this for yourself. Don't expect a certain result right away because in the first couple of weeks, you're going to be analyzing the data to see what's going on and what works. And you're going to be making adjustments a lot in the first few weeks. But then once you figure it out, you can then start cruising. But not many people make it through the 4 to 6 weeks or even longer of the trial and error period where you're learning. Now, next, you're going to get into your macronutrient ratios. Now, most people stop at caloric number and they're like, okay, my maintenance is 2,000 calories. I'm going to eat 1,500. 1,500 calories of what? They don't know. They're just going to eat 1,500 calories of whatever the fuck. And they're like, well, why don't I have my dream physique? Why do I look the same? Scale's going down, but why do I look the same? Just like slightly smaller. It's because you're not paying attention to anything except that damn calorie deficit. So within that deficit, you need to be looking at your macronutrients. Now, the reason that these macronutrients are important is because we're focused on fat loss, not weight loss. We want to lose as much fat as possible, but we do not want to lose any muscle. We want to retain and grow as much muscle as possible at the same time. So in order to make sure that happens, we cannot only focus on the caloric number because only focusing on the caloric number would mean that we're only focused on weight loss. But when we focus on the macronutrient ratios within that caloric number, we're pretty much doing everything in our power to make sure that our body is losing fat and building and retaining muscle. Whereas with weight loss, you could be losing fat, you could be losing muscle, you don't really know. Now, the things that you want to look for is number one, making sure that your protein goal is where it needs to be. I'd aim at 1 gram per pound of body weight. Now, if you are severely overweight, I would aim for your estimated body weight, your goal body weight, what you think, your best guesstimate of what it's going to be. So that takes up a chunk of that deficit. Now, the rest of the deficit we're going to want to fill with carbs and fats. Now, as far as filling the rest of your deficit with carbs and fats, you want to make sure that most of that goes to your carbs. Now, we don't want to cut out fats entirely because they're essential for proper hormone function, as well as giving you a sustainable energy source. Now, the body uses carbs and fats for its energy sources, and when paired together, it's a lethal combo, but you don't want to go too heavy with the fats. They're a little bit more calorically dense, which slows digestion and can make one tired if they're not timed correctly. And our body utilizes carbs to think and to perform in the gym and in certain modes of training, which is why it's imperative that we direct most of our energy towards that. Lastly, meal timing. Now, something that I implement for all of my clients, and I think I've talked about on here a few times, is that every meal serves a purpose. So now in the morning, your breakfast's purpose is to refuel because you went the whole 8 hours of sleep without eating. Lunch's main goal is to replenish because it's typically after training. And then we have dinner, which is focusing on recovery. That's where we'll typically program most of our fatty foods and fibrous vegetables because those slow digestion can help you get ready for bed because slow digestion makes you a little bit more tired, therefore helping you get the ultimate recovery. So now that you've understood everything that's specific to you when it comes to building your own meal plan, and then we've understood what we need to look at when it comes to building your meal plan, the total number of calories you're eating every single day, the ratios of the macronutrients within those calories, and when you're going to eat said calories, we can look at meal planning. Now, something that I want to say with the meal timing thing is breakfast is typically carbs, protein, a little bit of fat. Lunch is typically carbs, protein, minimal fat just for quick digestion after your workout so that you can get replenished as fast as possible. And things that have fat and fiber are a little bit slower in digestion. And lastly, we'll have dinner, which has fiber, fat, carbs, and protein. This is going to be the meal that leads us right into bedtime that'll help with the ultimate recovery. Now let's get into the two options that you have with the meal plan. I'm going to go to the simple one first. You take your schedule, you take your preferences, you take your timeline and your current position, and then you figure out what the calories are that you need to eat, and then you figure out those macronutrient numbers within those calories that I just explained to you, and you divide those numbers amongst the meals that you're going to have in the day, and then you time them according to what I said earlier about the meal timing and the purpose of each meal, and boom, there you go. You have your answer. So the set plan requires no extra thinking. This is what I recommend for my busiest clients, also my clients that are more on the beginner side, so they don't really know what to do, so they don't necessarily get the freedom to be able to just go choose it on their own because again, they're coming to me for help. So why am I going to tell them to go figure it the fuck out? Like I said, this is good as a roadmap when juggling being a beginner in the gym, new to nutrition, or just a busy life and you don't want to think about it. You don't want to wake up and be like, oh my God, what am I going to eat today? How am I going to hit my protein goal? And you're thinking that all day. Next thing you know, it's dinner and you got to eat 130 grams of protein and you're screwed. Right? You don't want to have to think that. And so some of my clients love this because they don't have to, because I remember a struggle that I used to have when I first got into this journey of really trying to take control of my nutrition. And it was always like, how am I going to meet all these numbers? Whereas now I know what I'm going to eat before the day that I'm going to eat those things even comes. And that helps me not feel overwhelmed. And then it makes me less likely to go off track. Now, like I said, the pros of this, it's easy, it's simple. Cons, lack of variety, and it can be a bit rigid. Now, next, let's go ahead and get into the other method that's a little bit more flexible, a little bit more variety, and ultimately is the most sustainable option. Now, this method is the latter of the former. So this method is what comes once they're not a beginner anymore and they've followed that meal plan and they're like ready to take the next step. So this I've called the Lego method. This is a little bit more advanced, but each meal my clients eat is for a reason. Like I said, refuel, replenish, recover. When you know why you're eating something, you will always know what to eat. So you find your favorite meals and you use them as blocks in the plan that you switch around according to your preference. Now, this is recommended for flexibility and variety. The pros of this is going to be, like I said, flexibility and variety. The cons, more knowledge and discipline required, and also sometimes more time if you don't plan accordingly. This is essentially like looking at all the meals and even the ingredients in the meals as Legos and building blocks and being able to interchange them because you know enough about nutrition, you know enough about your body, and you know enough about your goals. Now, it's easier for my clients to do this Lego method. The hard part for them when they have the Lego method is the discipline that's required. Because when you have a lot of decisions to make, you typically go off plan and your brain can get overwhelmed. So I don't introduce this to most of them, only the ones that I think are at the level to be able to do this and implement it. But if you're doing this, you will have to have the knowledge, whereas they don't really have to have the knowledge because I'm doing that part. They do have to have the discipline though. So for you, you will have to have the discipline and the knowledge, which is why I'm saying this is a little bit harder and it's more so like the second step after doing this one for a few months. Now, the reason that my clients only really have to rely on discipline is because on their dashboard, it has the number of macronutrients in every single meal, as well as the micronutrients and the totals that they're hitting per day so that they know that they can essentially look at foods that have the same numbers and make sure that they match. But this Lego method is essentially the deficit, and think of the deficit as the house that you're building with the Legos. The blocks that you use within that are interchangeable, and those are the meals that you enjoy. Maybe this block here is egg whites and some berries and chicken sausage. But one day you wake up, you grab a block like this, and let's say it's green. It's the same shape, it's just a different color, and that block is Greek yogurt, chia seeds, and some berries. Relatively similar nutrient profile, however, totally different flavor profile. And so that's why I said the pros of the Lego method are essentially going to be the flexibility and the variety that you get, but it does require more knowledge on your end and more discipline on your end just because it adds more decisions. Now, those are the two methods that I have. If you are a beginner, I recommend this one over here. If you are more advanced, or if you have done this one for quite a while and you need more flexibility and variety, I recommend this one over here. That is everything that I have for this video. Again, guys, remember, you need to understand these things about yourself before you go into building out all of this down here. If you want me to build this out for you and ultimately guide you to building your dream physique, I will leave the application in the description of this video. And if you're a good fit and spots are available, I will personally be reaching out to you. If you have any questions whatsoever about anything that I mentioned here, if you need anything at all, you want to reach out to me, I left my Instagram in the description as well. Message me there and I will get back to you with a voice message. As always, guys, don't forget to do hard shit. Be confident, have the courage to be uncomfortable, but most importantly, do not forget how much I love you guys and how much I'm rooting for you. Also, the new year is right around the corner. Do not start on January 1st. Start building the momentum now so that you can go ahead and carry all that momentum into the next year and you don't waste a single second. One thing I want to say before I close out, it's the same thing that I said at the end of a lot of my videos last year. You can't save time. You can only spend it. So quit freaking wasting it. It is that time of year again where people start to drop the ball and let go. Don't let that be you. Get after it, guys, and let's attack this new year with some speed.